Welcome back to Silent Conspiracy. Tonight we journey to a place where a queen's dying curse may have rewritten the laws of nature. And ancient temples emerge from sand like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky, where a prosperous capital transformed into a desert wasteland. Picture this: Karnataka, 1610. A queen stands on a cliff above the sacred Cauvery River, clutching temple jewels to her chest as an army closes in. Below, the river churns. Behind, soldiers sent by a greedy king draw their swords. She has seconds to decide. With her final breath, Queen Alamelamma utters 3 curses so powerful they would echo through 4 centuries. May Talakad turn to sand. May Malangi become a whirlpool. And may the Mysore kings remain forever childless. Within decades, a thriving city of 30 magnificent temples began vanishing beneath advancing sand dunes. The Cauvery developed deadly whirlpools, and generation after generation, the Wodyar dynasty struggled to produce natural heirs. Tonight, we explore Talakad, Karnataka's buried city, where geologists speak of ecological disasters, while locals insist a scorned woman's curse changed reality itself. At its height in the 12th century, Talakad comprised 7 towns and 5 mathas, religious monasteries. According to historian M.A., the city boasted over 30 temples representing various architectural styles spanning nearly a millennium. The Cholas conquered it in the 11th century, followed by the Hoysalas, and finally the Vijayanagara Empire-rich dynasty, leaving their architectural mark on the sacred landscape. The city's name itself comes from Talavanapura, meaning jungle city, appearing in inscriptions from the Ganga king. Haravarma, around 500 CE for travelers and pilgrims. Talakad was renowned for the Panchalinga's 5 temples, dedicated to the 5 faces of Lord Shiva, lining the Cauvery's banks: Pathaleshwara, Maruleshwara, Mallikarjuna, and Vadishwara. A pilgrimage to all 5 was called the Panchalinga Darshana, considered highly auspicious. The events that would seal Talakad's fate began in the early 17th century, during the death throes of the Vijayanagara Empire. Tirumalaraya, also called Srirangaraya, the Vijayanagara viceroy ruling Srirangapatna, fell gravely ill with an incurable disease. Desperate for divine intervention, he undertook a pilgrimage to the Vedishwara temple in Talakad, hoping Lord Shiva would cure his affliction. Back in Srirangapatna, his second wife, Queen Alamelamma, managed the kingdom in her husband's absence. Alamelamma was a devoted follower of Sri Ranganaki, the consort of Sri Ranganatha, enshrined in Srirangapatna's famous temple. Each year, she would send her personal jewels, magnificent pieces studded with pearls and precious stones, to adorn the goddess, receiving them back after the rituals. When news arrived that Tirumala was dying and would never return, Alamelamma made a fateful decision. She handed over the kingdom to Raja Wodyar, the first 1552 to 1617, the Maharaja of Mysore, for safekeeping during this crisis. It seemed a reasonable move. The Wodyars were powerful neighbors who could provide stability. But Raja Wodyar had other plans. According to legend, he had long coveted either Alamelamma herself, or more commonly in the accounts, the magnificent temple jewels in her possession. Some versions suggest misguided attraction. Others speak purely of greed for the sacred ornaments. When Alamelamma's husband died and the kingdom passed into Wodyar control, Raja Wodyar demanded she surrender all the temple jewels. Alamelamma refused. These weren't merely valuables, they were sacred objects belonging to the goddess. When temple authorities and then Raja Wodyar himself sent messengers demanding the jewels, Alamelamma sent back only a single item, the pearl-studded nose ring. It was an act of defiance that would prove fatal. Enraged, Raja Wodyar dispatched his army to Talakad with orders to seize the jewels by force. Alamelamma, now widowed and hunted, gathered all the remaining jewels, wrapping them in her sarong, fled toward the village of Malangi on the Cauvery River. As soldiers closed in, Alamelamma realized escape was impossible. She climbed to a cliff overlooking the river, where a whirlpool churned below. Before the horrified eyes of witnesses, she prayed to Lord Venkateswara, asking that if she had been a sincere devotee and faithful wife, her dying wish be granted as a curse upon the evil king. Then, clutching the sacred jewels, Alamelamma uttered the legendary 3-fold curse in Kannada: Talakad Maralagali, Malangi, Maduva, Mysore, Doraj Makalulid, Hogali, which translates to, "May Talakad turn into barren sand, may Malangi become a whirlpool, and may the Mysore kings remain childless." With those words hanging in the air, she leaped into the churning waters of the Cauvery, taking the temple jewels to her watery grave. The immediate aftermath was dramatic. Upon hearing of Alamelamma's suicide and her curse, Raja Wojar was reportedly overcome with guilt. In Wojar culture, as one source explains, you could conquer kingdoms and defeat enemies, but harming women, particularly widows, was considered deeply taboo. A curse from a woman, especially one driven to suicide, carried immense spiritual weight. To express his grief and perhaps appease her angry spirit, Raja Wodyar commissioned a golden idol of Alamelamma and installed it in the Mysore palace, where it has been worshipped as a deity ever since. A strand of her hair was preserved in a sacred box. Even today, the Dasera festivities in Mysore Palace conclude only after formal puja to Alamelamma. The same pearl-studded nose ring she sent back now adorns both the goddess Ranganyaki and Alamelamma's idol. A woman who cursed their dynasty became a goddess for the Wodyarza, remarkable transformation born of fear and remorse. But the real horror was yet to come. Within decades of Alamelamma's death, all three elements of her curse began manifesting with eerie precision. The most dramatic evidence lies in Talakad itself. The once fertile capital on the Cauvery's banks began experiencing unprecedented sand accumulation starting in the 17th century, exactly when Alamelamma died. Over approximately 200 years, massive sand dunes advanced relentlessly, eventually burying the entire city. Today, sand dunes stretch over a mile, reaching heights of nearly 60 feet in some places. The old city is completely submerged beneath these dunes, creating a surreal desert landscape utterly at odds with the lush, river-fed farmland surrounding it. Travelers describe it as shocking. You drive through abundant green fields and water, then suddenly encounter a mini desert that shouldn't exist. The 30 ancient temples that once graced Talakad now lie buried. Only after the Archaeological Survey of India (ASE) began excavations in 1991 were some temples painstakingly unearthed. Even today, only about 5 have been fully excavated and are accessible. The rest remain entombed, waiting to be rediscovered. The Panchalinga temples emerge from the sand like monuments to a lost civilization, their intricate carvings still visible despite centuries underground. The Pathaleshwara temple is particularly famous for its Shiva Linga that mysteriously changes color, appearing red in the morning, black at noon, and white in the evening, a phenomenon devotees attribute to supernatural forces. The second element of the curse that Malangi would become a whirlpool also manifested. The Cauvery River, at the exact spot where Alamelamma drowned, developed dangerous, unpredictable whirlpools that persist to this day. Locals warn visitors about the treacherous currents, and the whirlpools are well-documented geographical features. Perhaps most unsettling is the third curse, that Mysore kings would fail to produce heirs. Over 400 years, the Wodyar dynasty has struggled with succession in ways that defy statistical probability. Generation after generation, the Mysore royal family either had no male children or experienced infant deaths, forcing them to adopt heirs' nephews, cousins, distant relatives. Historical records show that male children appeared only once every 2 generations, far below what natural probability would suggest. Mumati Krishna Raja Wodyar, one of Mysore's most celebrated kings, died without a natural heir. The pattern continued into modern times. The last Maharaja died heirless. Adoptions became routine. This curse seemed unbreakable until 2017, when current titular ruler Yaduvir Krishnadatta Kamaraja Wodyar and his queen Trishika Kumari gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Adyavir Narasimharaja. The public greeted the news with astonishment. Could this finally be the end of the 400-year curse? Geologists and archaeologists offer rational explanations for Talakad's sand burial. The leading theory centers on the Madhava Mantri Dam, constructed in 1342 CE, approximately 270 years before Alamelamma's curse by a minister of the Vijayanagara court. The dam, built just north of Talakad, disrupted the Cauvery's natural flow, creating shallow water that exposed sand deposits that had accumulated in the riverbed over millennia. This sand dried rapidly under the sun, and prevailing southwesterly winds carried the particles directly toward Talakad, depositing them on the ancient city. Additional factors include deforestation along the riverbank, which removed natural barriers to sand movement, and the presence of Majukuthor Hill, which created wind patterns that funneled sand toward the city. Stratigraphic studies confirm sand accumulation began during the late Vijayanagara period in the 17th century. Over 200 years, tired of fighting the relentless sand, Talakadu's inhabitants simply abandoned their homes and moved away. The temples were left to the desert. As for the Wojar succession issues, skeptics note that infant mortality was high in pre-modern India, and adoption was common practice among royal families facing succession crises. The curse could be confirmation bias people, remembering failures while forgetting successes. Yet even scientific explanations struggle with certain facts. Why did sand accumulation accelerate so dramatically in the decades immediately following 1610, the year of Alamelamma's death? Why does sand continue accumulating specifically at Talakad, while surrounding areas remain fertile and lush? And what of the whirlpools forming precisely where Alamelamma drowned? Or the eerie consistency of succession failures across 15 generations of Wodyars? Locals firmly believe in the curse's supernatural origin. Every 12 years, during a special planetary alignment, Talakad hosts the Panchalinga Darshana, festival lasting 5 days when the buried temples are temporarily excavated for worship. Tens of thousands gather to honor the temples, and by extension, acknowledge the forces that buried them. Archaeologists continue excavating, finding new temples, inscriptions, and artifacts that reveal Talakadu's former glory. Each discovery reminds visitors that beneath the sand lies an entire civilization frozen in time by forces that remain, even now, not fully understood. As we stand among Talakadu's sand-swept temples, we confront an uncomfortable question. Can human will, channeled through righteous fury and dying breath, actually reshape physical reality? Or do we simply impose patterns on natural disasters, finding supernatural explanations for geological coincidence? Alamelamma's story resonates because it speaks to universal themes: the abuse of power, the courage of the oppressed, and the possibility that justice denied in life might be claimed from beyond death. Whether her curse was literal magic or symbolic truth, Talakad stands as a testament that some stories refuse to be buried, no matter how much sand accumulates. What do you think? Did Alamelamma's curse genuinely alter nature, or did environmental factors coincidentally align with legend? Can grief and rage truly manifest as geological transformation? And if the curse was real, does the birth of Adavir in 2017 finally break it, or will the sand dunes continue their slow march across Karnataka? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this journey into Karnataka's buried city